So Jordan, based on my math, are you 30 yet?
Nope, not yet. Just turned 28 in May.
Yeah. What do you know, right? I think that's great. That's fantastic. And based on my math, even at 2.5%, 85 million will get you be starting to reach $1.5 to $2 million in GCI. Does that sound right? Am I math right?
Yeah, I think we'll end up being a little bit higher than that
Than
this
that?
year, probably 1.7 to 1.8. I think last year we ended at right about 1.5 GCI.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So fantastic. Very, very good. So talk to me at 21, 22 years old. How did you get started, listing and selling real estate? Did you always work for Intero or did you work for somebody else?
I started back at Coldwell Banker in 2003 or 2014. During the transition of graduating college and getting my real estate license, I wanted to do something that was going to give me some insight into the industry so that when I got licensed, I could rock and roll right from the beginning. And so I figured that a leasing position at an apartment complex would give me some familiarity with talking to people. And so I was searching Craigslist for these positions, and I actually ended up coming across a position to be a marketing and advertising assistant to two top producing realtors. And so I figured that that was going to give me the insight into what they were doing on a daily basis to be successful. So that gave me some background into the industry over the 6 months of working on getting my real estate license. And then when I got licensed, I kind of had them as mentors, but had exposure at that point where I kind of knew what they were doing business practice wise, but didn't know what to say to people, right? And if I walked into someone's house, I mean, I remember walking into listing presentations and people saying, "You look like you just graduated high school." And I was like, okay, yeah, but I'm going to sell your house for a better price than anyone else's. And I'm going to work harder than anyone else because I have something to prove, right? And so,
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. And when I first got into the industry, people told me, okay, go and create a database of your sphere of influence and get all their phone numbers and their email addresses and where they live. Well, none of my friends or the majority of my sphere of influence was buying houses in the Silicon Valley at 21 years old.
Right.
So, I mean, I realized that I could go create a huge network for myself on LinkedIn with people that were working at these tech companies that were the ones purchasing houses in the Silicon Valley. So a little background, when I was doing that marketing and advertising stuff, I was also doing some side work for my dad, who's a motivational speaker and life coach. And what he had me doing was go and reach out to people on LinkedIn, trying to book speaking engagements for him. And it was people that he didn't know, but what I saw was the results that that was creating and the power that LinkedIn had. So I knew immediately when I got licensed that I was going to take that same approach to my real estate business. So I would go, you can get super specific on LinkedIn with your search criteria. So first I went through all of the Penn State alumni that lived in the Silicon Valley and connected with them because there was at least some type of common connection there that I
Sure.
could reach out to. But once I exhausted that, I went and searched for people, okay, that now work at Google that used to work at Apple, because I knew something about them immediately based off my search criteria. So I would go and mass connect to all of these people and then go back a few weeks later and see who accepted my invitations to connect, and then message them directly and just say, hey, it looks like you've had a great career up to this point. It looks like you used to work at Apple and now you work at Google. Which one do you prefer working at more? So that there was a immediate outreach to them, that I knew something about them and that it was focused on them instead of going directly into a sales pitch. But then the next paragraph was, I'm working as a realtor for Coldwell Banker. Like, I would love to set up a time to grab coffee with you and talk about your real estate needs, and if there aren't currently any, what they might be in the future, right? And it was my goal to set 3 coffee appointments a week with people that I didn't know from those connections, whether they had a plan to do something immediately or not, just because if they were going going to be willing to take time out of their day to grab a cup of coffee with me, there was some type of value that they saw in that meeting taking place, right?
Right.
So there was that aspect, which was a good way to prospect for me and cost effective at the beginning of things. Today, I've grown my LinkedIn network to consist of over 20,000 connections. So there's great exposure on there for me from that aspect. But the other facet of generating business when I first got into the industry, which obviously is a little complicated today, but it was open houses every week, right? Because I like to compare open houses to someone working on a car dealership lot, right? The majority of people are not walking into an open house unless they have plans to buy or sell real estate. Yes, are there those couple people that are weird and just enjoy going to open houses for fun and want to take a look at houses? Yes, there's those couple, but that's not the majority, right? And so I figured that I had a time frame when those people were walking through those homes to build rapport with them and hopefully get their contact information. And then, I mean, more so than anything else with open houses, it's your lead follow-up afterwards that turns into conversions from there. But I want to point out that it wasn't only Saturdays and Sundays that I was doing open houses, right? I figured if I could put myself in front of 2 or 3 people, even on a Thursday or a Friday night or a lunch break near some of these tech companies, like, I mean, I know that a lot of people talk about, oh, we want to have 75 groups through an open house. I hate having 75 groups through an open house because I can't talk to all 75 of those groups. I would rather have 10 to 15 throughout a 3-hour period where I can actually build rapport and have a conversation with those people while they're through. So I figured, okay, if I have my hotspot on my phone and I'm going to go do a Thursday or Friday night open house, I can work from my computer. And if 3 people come through, I just put myself in front of 3 people that I wouldn't have otherwise put myself in front of if I was working from my couch or working from my office, right? So
Right.
it was kind of, it was obviously your typical Saturday and Sunday open houses, but it was a little unconventional in other regards too. Whenever a listing agent would let me do an open house, I found that to be of value, right? So that was when I first got in my first year, that was where the majority of my business came from, was from LinkedIn and open houses. And I think as we see a lot of the time when you first get into the industry, newer agents tend to work with buyers, right? I mean, that's the typical progression that I've seen. And at least in our market during that time, the majority of homes were getting multiple offers on them. And if your offer doesn't get accepted, you're back to square one with your buyer. So I kind of wanted to transition away from that and turn to the listing side, right? Where it's a guaranteed paycheck if you're priced correctly and you have the ability to leverage those listings that you have into future clients as well, whether it be buyer leads that come from those listings or other listings in the nearby neighborhood, right? So that's kind of the background on the first year and where the majority of my business came from at the beginning.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I've heard LinkedIn stories before, and you really leveraged that in a big way. So good job. Congratulations.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, if anyone wants, I have a whole presentation, PowerPoint presentation on my LinkedIn approach. If anybody wants that, just feel free to send me an email afterwards and I'll gladly share that with all you guys.
Definitely. Absolutely. We will do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good. Okay. So you're picking up the leads. My sense is that you're dealing in a higher price point. Is that partially because it's Silicon Valley? Is it because of demand, because of design? Where did you go with that?
Well, I mean, comparatively speaking, our price point in the Silicon Valley is higher than the majority of the rest of the country, right? I mean, I've handled properties from a $250,000 mobile home up to a $6 million single family home in Los Altos, right? So, I mean, I know that some people brand themselves as being a certain neighborhood expert or whatnot, but I didn't want to, going back, like I I had a bunch of cities listed on my LinkedIn that I serviced, right? And Milpitas is a city that borders San Jose here that wasn't
Right.
listed on my profile. And someone reached out to me at one point and said, "Hey, we kind of love to work with you, but it doesn't look like you service Milpitas." Well, obviously I'd service Milpitas if I'm servicing the rest of these cities, right? And so that was when I immediately noticed that, like, I need to brand myself as your Silicon Valley Bay Area real estate expert so that it's broad and covers everything rather than focusing on a certain geographic niche. Like these days, yes, I have a lot of farming that takes place that focuses on certain neighborhoods, but in general, I've encompassed that whole thing and just branded myself broadly like that. So I mean, I think my average listing price these days is somewhere around like 1.5 to 1.6, and pretty similar on the buyer side of transactions as well. But like I said, I mean, I think that everyone's real estate goals are equally as important, whether it's servicing a $350,000 condo or a $10 million house. Like, I mean, all of those deserve to be treated with the same quality of service. And just because the price point or what you're making commission wise doesn't translate to the same amount, I mean, they're all a referral source, and you treat that the same way.
Absolutely. You bet. Uh, your business split 50-50 buyers, sellers, kind of the way.
These days, it's about probably 65% listings and about 35% buyers. I'm not doing as many open houses, or at least prior to the shelter in place stuff, I wasn't doing as many open houses to generate buyer leads as I was doing at the beginning of my career. I mean, the majority of buyers that I work with these days are investors, developers, and then referrals that have came from past clients. But doing a lot more on the listing side these days than buyer side.
Okay. So let me see. You worked the LinkedIn, generated some business there, kind of developed that into the different areas that you're doing. And then it kind of sounds like you're doing geographic farming right now. Am I right?
Yeah. So my deal progression was year one, I did 8 transactions. Year two, I did 12 transactions. And then year three was the huge jump that I went from 12 to 41. So there was a huge breakthrough between year two and year three. And I think that one, that was accumulation of all the hard work that was put in the first 2 years, starting to build a brand and grow your own business, right? Because you're backed by a big brokerage name, but at the end of the day, you're the brand and you're who people are going to decide whether they want to work with or not work with. And so, I mean, I was doing a lot of farming at that point as well, which in my opinion, if you start a farm, I mean, it takes 12 to 18 months for that to materialize into anything. And if you're going to start a farm and not commit to it for that time period, you're wasting your time and your money. And my approach on farming is that you need to hit all of these homes every 2 weeks, right? So and it doesn't have to be super expensive to do so, right? I think that's one of the challenges when you first get into the industry, is that if you really want to be successful and continue to grow your business, you have to put money into it. There's no doubt about that, but that's difficult when you first get in, right? So what was the most cost-effective way for me to put my name in front of all these people regularly, not having a ton of money to invest in my business at the beginning? I decided that I was going to go drop flyers on people's doorsteps, right? So originally I was told, okay, pick a farm of 500 homes. And the overachiever that I am, I'm like, oh, 500, that's nothing. Let's go do 1,500. And that was stupid of me. I should have listened to other people at that point, because dropping 1,500 flyers on doorsteps every 2 weeks was not manageable, right? But so I scaled it back and to begin with, and it was always me out dropping flyers myself. And I would usually go out and drop flyers at 4:30 in the morning, so that I could have 500 flyers dropped by the time that I would get into the office at 8 a.m. And trust me, you become very familiar with who has motion sensors and who has dogs at that time of the morning. And the newspaper truck is super creepy too, when it's pulling up behind you, throwing newspapers at 4:30 in the morning, and you just wonder if you're about to get abducted or not. but that was the grind that I knew that I needed to put in, right? So every 2 weeks I was doing 500 flyers. And I think the biggest thing that I realized when I started to take some listings in year 2 was the fact that I could leverage those listings into further transactions, right? So I implemented a program which I kind of refer to as kind of spot farming around my listings, right? So anytime I take a listing now, I have 500 flyers dropped in the direct neighborhood around it with a coming soon flyer the day after I sign the listing. Just, hey, here's what I have coming soon. Do you know of any friends, family, or colleagues looking to move into the neighborhood, right? So those 500 are dropped on people's doorsteps. And then I have the title company also pull me 200 non-owner occupieds that are around that address as well. And I mail those 200 non-owner occupieds with the same flyer. And so you have the coming soon flyer. And then when we go on the market, if we were talking about pre-shelter in place, I would drop off another flyer once we were just listed, inviting them to a neighborhood tour with appetizers and wine. I mean, these days it's just a just listed flyer that goes out because obviously we can't do these public things. So those 500 homes are again getting a just listed / invitation to a neighborhood tour, and the same thing is going out to the non-owner occupieds. And then when we go pending, there's a pending flyer dropped on those 500 doorsteps, and same thing mailed to non-owner occupieds. And then when we actually close, there's a just sold that goes out to the same homes again. And then 2 weeks after we close, there's a market update of that neighborhood that goes out. So all of those homes are getting your information 5 to 6 times directly in front of them over a 2-month period, right? And there's always going to be a neighborhood expert wherever you go, but people really care about who's doing what now and what they're generating for their clients, right? So putting that information in front of those homeowners very regularly over that time period. I mean, I would say probably 70% of the time that I have a listing, I'm able to generate another listing in the neighborhood based off that approach. And yes, it takes some manpower dropping those flyers. I don't do it these days myself like I did at the beginning, but I pay people to go and do it. And my thought is that it works a lot better than postcards in the mail, just because I'm not oblivious to the fact that my marketing material the majority of the time is going in the trash. But at least if it's on their doorstep, they have to look at it and pick it up on the way to the trash, right? So there's probably 30 seconds of exposure that I get there comparatively to, okay, if it's just a postcard mixed in with the rest of the junk mail, it just goes right in the trash without someone looking at it. So, I mean, I've had great success with that, leveraging my listings. And then, I've just started doing EDDM, every door direct mailing, and that I'm sending out an 8.5 by 11 flyer, double-sided, and I just started that 3 months ago. I started a 17,000 home farm, and I've never done that type of mailing before, but off of 3 mailings so far, I have 1 signed listing, 1 $2 million buyer lead, and then a listing appointment next week for a $2 million house. So, I mean, it's kind of hard in my mind to think sending out 17,000 flyers that not one person is going to call you. And that's just a numbers game, right? I'm a firm believer that no matter what approach you take, the more people you put yourself in front of, the more likely it's going to be that there's business generated from those efforts.
Sure, absolutely. Look, you're working really hard at this. Actually, we talked to somebody yesterday that talked about the 8-touch program. You're kind of doing an 8-touch program here with a farm area. It's fascinating, the similarities and differences. You used a word over here about the grind. The grind, we talk about the grind in terms of door knocking and phone canvassing, and you're talking about the grind by making sure that every 2 weeks you have something out in front of somebody, whether it's a pending, whether it's a sale, et cetera, et cetera. Powerful and somewhat consistent. I appreciate this. You're working your tush off and getting a lot of good results from this. The work that you're doing, I mean, is it, let's back up for just a second. There's a over time, you didn't spend a lot of money in the beginning. I would suspect you didn't have it to spend, correct?
Right.
Okay. But over time, you started spending more and more money. I mean, as an example, what does it cost to send out 17,000 EDDMs?
So it's about $5,700
Right.
each
Okay.
time I do that. So
And you do that twice a month, twice a month?
this campaign I'm only doing once a month because I didn't know how EDDM was going to work and what results were going to come from it. And obviously it's a very costly investment. So what I told myself when I started this was, okay, I'm going to do this for once a month for the next 6 months. I'm going to commit to that. That's like a almost $40,000 investment. And I told myself, if there's one transaction that comes from that, then I'm going to continue to do it monthly. And I'm super pleased with the results that it's generated.
Right. Absolutely. So the progression from the beginning was from a few $100s a month to a few $1,000s a month to maybe tens of thousands of dollars a month, not a month, but certainly it progresses along. So how much you think you have invested in this project so far? All over time, building your brand and the business. Get 100,000 in it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it depends on which way you want to look at it, right? I mean, if we're talking about monthly spend in regards to marketing and my assistant, I mean, I'd say that I'm probably spending about $20,000 a month these days on on having a full-time assistant and all the marketing that I put out, because I have that 17,000 home farm, but there's probably about an additional 5,000 to 6,000 homes that are separate farms that I hit every 2 weeks as well. A lot of those are out of state owners. So I pull the title companies that everyone that owns properties that live out of state. My thought was that they're probably not as well connected to a local agent. And I think that farm is going to I've been doing that about 3 years now. First year, I think we had one transaction that came from it. The second year, I think we had 3. And then this year we've already had 6. And I think with the state of the economy and the way that California has put moratoriums on their tenant stuff and just financial insecurity with some people, I think that a lot of those homes are going to start to be sold. So I wouldn't doubt to see that farm pop even more later into this year or next year. But I mean, yeah, it's probably about a $20,000 monthly spend at this point. But it really wasn't until year 4 that I started investing a ton of money into my business. Once, because I did that 8, 12, and then 41. And then once I did those 41 deals, that's when I actually hired a full-time assistant and started implementing more things.
So Jordan, I want to go back to the jump in the 3rd year from 12 to 41. I mean, I know that it sounds totally like you were getting momentum and things going on there, but was there anything else that happened that created that jump for you, do you think?
There really wasn't. And it sounds crazy to say that because it's such a drastic difference, right? But I mean, I think that one of the biggest things that I did implement at that point was that leveraging my listings program, right? And I was doing all of my open houses at that point so that I could meet all the neighbors. And I mean, that's the biggest thing that transpired in that year, was that I was able to figure out how to leverage those listings into more buyers and more sellers in the neighborhood. And so, I mean, I think that it might not make sense just saying that it's accumulation of all the hard work over the first couple of years, but the majority of it is that's what it was, right? And I mean, I think just going back to social media in a sense, I know that LinkedIn was a huge platform that I used to build new connections, but going back to that sphere of influence, right, where I was told to create that database, I never created that database, but what I figured was that everyone that would have been in that database, I was already friends with on Facebook. And that's maybe part of that's a generational thing, right? But I figured if I could use my Facebook to keep myself in front of all of these people and always be top of mind, that was going to serve as how I was going to stay in front of my sphere of influence, right? So it might not have directly been people that I went to high school with that were buying or selling houses, but I started to have people that were reaching out that, hey, my parents are thinking about selling their house. Would you be willing to chat with them, right? And these are people that I haven't talked to in 8 years since graduating high school. And there's no way they were going to go trying to seek out what Jordan Mott was doing or is Jordan Mott selling real estate. But because of the fact that I was using that platform, it was very clear to them the success that I was having, and I was top of mind, right? It's every day that I post something on Facebook about my real estate business, and that's all on my personal page. So that's staying in front of all of those people regularly so that you are top of mind, right?
I have a question on this generational. You brought up generational, and you talk about Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and you're not 30 yet. I hear that Facebook is for old people. So clearly, you don't feel that way. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, I guess yeah, you probably have your even younger generation saying that because, I mean, nowadays I guess TikTok I have a little sister who's in high school that's on TikTok, and I mean, I don't know, Snapchat, but I mean, maybe, yeah, I mean, the world of social media is ever evolving, right? There's going to be a new platform every couple of years. I mean, if I look back when I was in middle school, I think it was MySpace, if that rings a bell with anyone, before Facebook was around. And so, I mean, I think that, yeah, it's always going to transition a little bit every couple of years. And I mean, I think that's part of trying to figure out how to stay in front of as many people as possible is, okay, which platforms do you utilize here to stay in front of those people? But
Right.
I mean, it's one of those things that's super cost effective again, right? Like I can make a post on Facebook and with a picture of a sold sign while standing in line at Starbucks, and it doesn't cost me a single dollar and takes 30 seconds, right? I mean, and I think that some hurdles that people have when they're trying to figure out what to put on social media is that they think that it needs to be something super elaborate, and it really doesn't. Like, and it also can be bullshit for that matter. Like, all you got to do is take a picture of your zip forms on car and say, I'm writing an offer for a buyer, whether you're doing it or not. I mean, it's the perception that you want to put in front of the consumer that you're always there as a trusted resource, right?
Got it. How did you, the non-owner occupied aspect of this fascinates me. How did you come down that street by working it so hard? And when I say hard, I mean, it sounds like it's a critical element in every piece of your marketing.
Yeah, I mean,
where'd that come from?
I think that non-owner occupieds are just less connected to whoever might be doing something in the neighborhood directly because they're not necessarily seeing it unless you put it in front of them, right? I mean, so they might not be paying attention to who's listing properties next door as the homeowner who lives there is seeing your sign in the neighborhood and sees your open house signs and gets the flyers on their doorsteps, right? So, I mean, you never know when those people are going to do something that you haven't necessarily had face-to-face connections with. But again, if you're consistently putting yourself in front of them on a farming basis or that spot farming technique around your listings, then there's a name that they're at least familiar with if they are thinking of doing something, right?
Right.
I mean, that out of state one, I mean, people have called me and said, we've got your flyers for the last 10 years. Well, no, it's only been the last 3 years that I've been mailing them, right? But I mean, they feel at that point, getting it every 2 weeks, you're a trusted name and they feel like it's been forever, right?
Sure.
I mean, my thought when I initiated that, my thought was that it was just people that were probably less connected to a trusted agent in regard to their real estate needs directly there associated with that home.
Cool. Very, very cool. Awesome. So COVID has entered our world and caused us to change some of the things we're doing. Door knocking might be an issue. Passing out things I don't think would be. Open houses, which sounds like was a huge part of what you do and did. Is that changing for you now? And you do that different?
I mean, so I am at the beginning of things, I implemented virtual open houses, and I thought that that was a good way to once again gain buyer contact information, because the way that I was doing it was anytime I put on a new listing, the profile or the main image on the MLS had the virtual open house link there and the date and time, so that it would feed directly to all the consumer facing websites. And then I would require registration for those open houses with their email addresses, and then it was follow up from there. I mean, my follow up is with buyers is just not as good as it used to be, just because I don't have the intense motivation to go work with buyers these days as I did at the beginning when they were essential to my business, right?
Right.
But I mean, I was already doing videos and Matterport and all of that stuff on all of my listings beforehand. I mean, yes, I got some flack at the beginning of Shelter in Place for continuing to drop flyers on people's doorsteps. But when you're dropping, I mean, my thought, maybe it's a little insensitive, was, are you going to call your mailman and complain about your mail being dropped off? Like, my flyers are touched by less people than your mail is. So, I mean, but at that point, when I was dropping that stuff off very early in this COVID phase, it wasn't about me, and it wasn't about sales data in the neighborhood. It was about, like, there was nurses around our neighborhood that were doing a porch pickup drive for PPE supplies. And so, like, I put that information on there. I put small businesses that were open for takeout in the community. And, like, it was not business. Granted, yes, it was business oriented, be it that it was branded with my name, but what can I do to be of service and value in this time in the neighborhood rather than sales data, right? So, I mean, when you're passing out the number of flyers that I am, there's always going to be people that complain and have issues with things, right? I mean, so there was a few people that didn't like it at the beginning of Shelter in Place, but that is what it is. I mean, rejection and pushback is part of this industry. And I mean, to be honest, COVID hasn't affected my business that much. I mean, I've worked with a lot more buyers during COVID than I typically have, just based off, there's been more referrals that have came to me buyers wise. And I mean, yeah, it's a little more difficult, being that I can't send them to open houses, and I'm showing a lot more properties these days. But I mean, buyers are a paycheck too. So, I mean,
Cool.
I don't want to discriminate against working with buyers, but I mean, they typically take a little bit more time and effort.
Right. Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Are you marketing on YouTube is one of the questions that came in?
Nope.
No, nothing at all. Just
Nope.
It is what it is. Okay. Excellent. Very good. Oh, do you mind taking a couple of questions, Jordan?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Perfect. All right. Let's open it up. Cherry, you had a question?
Yeah, question for Jordan. When you first started out, and in your first year, when you didn't really have that many listings going on, what kind of flyers did you hand out when you didn't have your own listings, when you had just picked up farm? Like, what kind of material were you dropping off every 2 weeks?
Simply market updates. So pull the sales data of anything that's closed or pending or active in that neighborhood. That's all people care about anyways. They don't care about pumpkin pie recipes and that type of crap, right? Like, they care about what's going on in their neighborhood. So I would drop off the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks of sales data, even if it was the same as the week before. And then I would put on my flyers that I provide all my sellers with free pre-sale inspections, free staging, free photos, free video, free high quality marketing materials, and make sure that my name was the biggest thing on the flyer.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Good question. Thank you, Cherry. Okay. Other questions for Jordan, please. What else you got?
Jordan,
Karen, go ahead.
yeah, on this drop off to the 500 homes, or this consistency that you're doing, when you get a negative call, do you try to like eliminate them, or do you just like keep sending to them?
No, if someone calls and complains and asks for no more flyers on their doorstep or no more mail being received, I definitely take them off. I mean, I don't want to piss people off more than they've already been pissed off originally. So I mean, yeah, I have a database of everyone who's requested to be taken off, and I make sure that whoever's dropping my flyers has a list of homeowners in that neighborhood that request no flyers dropped on their doorstep. And so, yeah, definitely.
Got it. Thank you.
That.
Good question. Thank you. Other questions for Jordan?
Yeah. Hey, Jordan, I have a question. The coffee appointments that you were doing early on in your career with people who you had kind of had some kind of contact with, how did those progress? Were they fruitful?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, if people were taking the time to grab coffee with me, I mean, I knew that they had some interest in real estate or questions about what was going on, or had some time. I mean, their time is just as valuable as ours, right? So, I mean, anytime anyone would accept a coffee invitation or be open to such, like I took advantage of that, whether they had whether they had the plan to do something immediately or not. A good example of this is someone reached back out to me in one of those responses and said, "Hey, Jordan, thanks so much for reaching out. Like, I just closed on my condo 2 weeks ago. And my initial thought is, damn it, I wish I would have reached out a month ago and got his business on purchasing his condo, right? But my mindset also took me to the place of, okay, if he still wants to grab coffee with me, like maybe he didn't have a good experience with his realtor. Maybe he's planning on buying further investment properties. And it ended up being exactly that, was that he did not have a great experience with the agent that he worked with. He ended up sending me 6 referrals over the next year from Google employees, and then ended up selling his condo with me, buying a townhouse, and then selling his townhouse again, right? But a lot of people would have put that off with the fact that he just did a transaction, and so there might not be any immediate value in that they wouldn't go grab coffee with that person. So, I mean, and at these coffee appointments, I would leave everyone with 5 of my business cards and say, hey, just hang on to these. If you do run into anyone that you find out that's planning on doing anything real estate wise, please feel free to pass along one of my business cards and contact information to them. Because I mean, there's still something powerful in this day and age about making a face-to-face connection and having a conversation with someone. Granted, the dynamic of that is a little bit different today than it has been in the past, but I recognize that everyone's time was valuable. So whether they had the plans to do something immediately or not, I wanted to take advantage of the fact that they were willing to grab coffee with me.
No, that's a great point. Good question, Tim. And we are in the meet the people business.
Yep.
And whether you meet them for coffee 3 times a week, which can only be a win-win, or you meet them at the door, or you door knock or phone canvas, we are in the meet the people business, period. End of conversation. Would you agree, Jordan?
Yeah, no, I mean, it all goes back to the more people that you're able to put yourself in front of and talk to, the more business you're going to do. I mean,
absolutely.
That's just the truth.
Absolutely. Other questions for Jordan?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Carlos.
Out of those million flyers that you have spent or passing around for the last few years, how many people call you on the flyer? Like saying, hey, I saw your flyer here. Tell me about real estate. Have you got any calls from people when they got the flyer from you? Did they ever call you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it consistently, then there's calls that take place. I mean, is it every time I drop flyers? No, but I mean, that's probably where 35% of my business comes from these days, is geographic farming and flyer drops. And like, I run into people that have hung on to 2 or 3 of my past flyers and say, hey, we have your 3 flyers here from the last 2 months. Like, we'd love to talk, and we're thinking about listing our home. Like, I mean, I just got that call on Monday, was, hey, I've got your last 2 monthly updates. They're sitting here in front of me. We're thinking about moving to Virginia. Can you meet with us?
Right.
Right.
Good stuff. Are you using a CRM system of any kind, or is this all on an Excel spreadsheet?
No CRM system.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. So no CRM probably means that your past client in Sphere isn't in a database yet.
It's in an Excel sheet.
Right. Okay.
With my, so it's very as wonderful of service as we all try to provide, right? I mean, that's not a long enough lasting impact on our clients to guarantee that they're going to use you again in the future. And I made that mistake, right? I saw probably about year 2 in, I saw one of my past clients' home come on the market with a different agent, and it was listed for 1.5. And so ultimately that was a $40,000 mistake that I made, not staying in front of those people regularly, right? And so all of my past clients I have on American Lifestyle Magazine, if any of you guys are familiar with that, which goes out quarterly. And then just as like a financial advisor would do, I mean, we send out quarterly CMAs to all of our past clients that here's the activity in your neighborhood over the past quarter, so that you're staying in touch with them. But I also want to point out that the majority of agents are not staying in front of their past clients. So every buyer who's purchased a listing of mine as well, they're getting those quarterly CMAs as well, so that when it comes to the time that they're going to do something, maybe they don't even remember who their agent was, or they already know that I was familiar with the property, being that I was the one that listed it and created them purchasing it. That I've had a couple of those phone calls as well. Hey, we get your CMAs every quarter. We were the buyers on your listing. Can you come over for a listing presentation?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's great.
Hey, Jordan.
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I got a question in regards to your prospecting on the morning. You said you do a couple hours, 5. That's the indirect approach to drop the flyers. When you get to the office, do you do the other prospecting, the direct approach on calling as well? What is your schedule in the morning?
I've spent 15 minutes on the phone in the last 6 years. I hate it. So respect to you guys that get on the dialers.
I love that. That's
Well,
fantastic.
That's so great.
Yeah. Tess, you had a question?
Yes. First of all, I want to make a comment, Jordan. I am so impressed with you. Do you do coaching for young kids? I like to have my kids to be coached by you. Unbelievable.
Tess, send him a check. He'll coach.
Yeah. Jordan didn't realize he just created a side business right now, but there you go.
What do they call that? A side gig?
Yeah.
Side gig.
Exactly. You are just so unstoppable. Nothing will stop you. And I really like that. You're open to anything. I mean, I'm very impressed. But my question to you would be this, and this is what Michael was saying, that, I mean, how much of that at 4:30 in the morning and be in the office at 8, you're probably exhausted already. So as far as your past.
Remember, he's not 30, Tess.
I know. 15 minutes? My
Yeah.
goodness. That's just getting started to just see if I should do it or not, right? So as far as the touching or talking to your clients, your past client, and having only an Excel, how many people are in your database, you say? I mean, I don't know if I caught that.
I mean, there's a couple hundred past clients and buyers of my recent listings or all of my past listings that we stay in touch with. And those are, like I said, those are CMAs that go out every quarter. I mean, in regards to further elements of prospecting, like there's not much to my business outside of farming and social media and just staying in front of people. I mean, that's where the majority of it comes from. And you stay in front of all those people, there's going to be referrals that come from such. And I mean, the mass amount of farming that I do creates a lot of that business as well. I mean, it's nothing that elaborate, to be honest with you. It's just consistency of doing what I'm doing and working harder than everyone else. Like, it's not rocket science.
Yeah, Dominic did say that about you. He said he's probably one of the hardest working guys he's ever seen.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay, one
that's,
last question.
go ahead.
One last question. As far as the CMA, do you use the RPR or what do you use? Like
I use Cloud CMA.
Cloud CMA? All right. Okay.
Cool.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan, good questions. Go ahead. Who had a question? Abigail?
Thank you, Jordan. I did have a quick little question for you. Do you have someone who manages your social media? Because I've noticed that I'm 31 and I get tired easily and I have no kids, you know, pretty happy life. But I get, if I would drop off flyers, I started doing that at the beginning of, when I started in real estate, and I would get tired. By the time I would go back to the office, I was just tired to make some phone calls, right? So how do you manage your social media? Does someone else manage your social media? And then my second question is, I noticed that you said 65% of your business are listings and 35% are you work with buyers. So how do you choose which buyers to work with, or do you have a buyer's agent?
Got it. So I manage all of my social media. Like I said, at least for me, it's super simple. Like I don't put anything super elaborate on there. It's past sales, what I'm doing on a daily basis. If I'm up late writing an offer at 9:30 p.m., I'm taking a picture of my computer and just saying, hey, I'm making an offer. Like if you guys are on Instagram, feel free to follow me. You can see everything on there, or add me on LinkedIn. I think my Instagram's Realtor Jordan Mott. And it's just consistent across all three platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I'm literally just copy and pasting whatever the one post is. And it doesn't take me longer than a minute to put together material to put on those platforms, right? And I think that that's the hiccup that people have, is that they think that it needs to be something super elaborate. Like you can just very easily take a selfie. I'm out showing property today. And like there's a tagline associated with every one of my social media posts. On everything that I post, you'll see, who do you know of looking to buy or sell real estate in the Silicon Valley or Bay Area? I am never too busy for your referrals, right? And so like that's something that people have grasped onto and become familiar with at that point. Like I coached high school football for 4 years, and some of the kids followed me on some of these social media platforms. And one day in the middle of the weight room, one of the kids stops and he's like, hey guys, I got an announcement for you. Coach Mott's never too busy for your referrals.
Yeah.
I'm like, good. That's good 20-year in advance prospecting. Don't forget that, kid. And so there's that aspect to it, and it's just consistency, right? And then going back to your question about buyers, I mean, probably 95% of my buyers these days are referrals from past clients, investors that I regularly work with, or builders that I regularly work with. But there is, what I've started to do as well, is when we were in the pre-COVID phase of doing open houses, I would have someone else host those open houses with me, and then it would be their responsibility to follow up with all the leads that we got, just because my motivation to follow up with buyers that may be non-committal is not there anymore these days. But you never know where they'll come from. Like, I mean, here's a good one, is that very early in shelter in place in COVID, I was out showing property and I was waiting for my client to get there who was late, and someone pulled up in front of the property and they're like, hey, can we see the house? And I was like, well, we have to actually sign forms to see properties these days, but I can meet you back here later this afternoon if you're not working with an agent already. And I wanted to make sure that they weren't working with someone at that point, and that they'd be committed to working with me, and I had the opportunity to earn their business if I was going to meet them back there later that afternoon. 4 weeks later, I sold them a $1.1 million property. Like, and that's just by chance, right? I mean, that they pull up at that time, but it's also not. Like, I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction, that if you're out there doing the things that you need to be doing to generate business, it might not always be from that direct aspect that business comes from, but business is going to come.
Great thought. Absolutely. Fantastic. Very, very good. Okay. Let's see. Other questions that we have
Can
here?
I ask another question?
Yes, Carlos, go ahead.
Developers, have you ever worked with big time investors that want to buy 40 or 60 acres of land to build an industrial business or something?
In that facet, no, I haven't. We don't have a ton of land here in the Silicon Valley that's available to do that type of thing. But what I've done in the past is I've put together 4 or 5 parcels that are right next to each other, and we're all single family homes. And now we have 16 townhouses going up on one of those projects. And I put together another couple where we have 14 or 16 townhouses going up. So, I mean, that's more of the development aspect. And
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Very, very cool. All right. Look, Jordan, we have taken a ton of your time. We could probably go on for another hour here, but let's do this maybe another time. Please, everybody, unmute yourselves. Thank you so much, Jordan. Woo! All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jordan, we're going to post your name and phone number in the chat box. Robert will go ahead and take care of that, or Miriam here in a minute or so. And then something that, so again, thank you so much for this information. It's a breath of fresh air. It's fantastic. You work very, very hard at this. This is not an easy job that you do.
Yeah.
We do it slightly differently, but I got to tell you, at the end of the day, you work plenty hard at this, and that's very respected.
And I just wanted to follow up on something that was said earlier. If people do want my LinkedIn presentation and some of my flyer templates that I drop off, just feel free to email me and I'll send them to you. And then feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram so that you can see what I'm posting on those platforms on a daily basis.
Great. We will do that. We have linked your address, your email address and cell phone numbers and stuff like that there. So it's already on the Zoom group chat. Thank you again. What we always do right now, and you're welcome to hang around, or if you need to go out and take care of business, you're welcome to do that. We're going to stop for a couple minutes and ask our team here, what did they learn today? What did you guys learn from Jordan? Who wants to go first? First. What did you learn today?
So I'll start, Neil. First of all, Jordan, thank you so much for being on here. I mean, really appreciate, know you're a really busy guy. Secondly, I am concerned that all of our agents are going to stop making phone calls. That does concern me right at this very moment, but you know, we'll get around that. You know,
I know it's the jury's out with me. As hard as he works and how much he spends on this, kind of makes door knocking and phone canvassing look fun. Easy. Yeah. You're a very, 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 very focused and hardworking young man, Jordan. Fantastic. And did I say you're not 30 yet? Sorry, Robert, go ahead.
No. It's great points. You know, my couple takeaways from him, one is he speaks very, very clearly and with direction. There's no there's no ahs, there's no thinking. It's super clear, super precise. So you can tell, like, if I'm on a listing appointment, I'm a seller, having a guy that's just super clear and focused, that's a really powerful thing. I hope people got that from just the way he talks, which is really interesting. And the other thing, which is very similar to Jennifer yesterday, is he clearly runs a profit and loss statement. And I really am trying to push this idea on agents. Like he said, well, I made that mistake once. That was a $40,000 mistake. And I tried to do this many thousand homes. And that was like, he runs a real business. And I just think that's a really, really key point that I hope people get more out of.
Great. Very good points. Thank you, Robert. Other thoughts? Anything else? Go ahead, Armand. Armand?
Yeah. First off, thank you, Neil, for being so open-minded to show us a different person that has a map to getting to the same place, but in a different direction.
That's it. That's it. I'm telling you, this guy works hard, and there's a plan, there's a method, and it's working for him. And if you work that plan or you work this plan, you're going to be fine. But doing nothing doesn't work.
Doing nothing doesn't work.
Yeah. Right.
Go ahead, Armin. Did you have a question or just a
No, that's what I wanted to say, but I have somebody in my mastermind group that does the same thing that he does, basically LinkedIn, Facebook posted. She does it herself, and I kind of poo-pooed her because she's the only one I met that had so much success. Jordan, your success is just kind of cemented that there's different ways to get to the same place, you know, and I just want to commend you on the hard work, because it is hard work. I mean, what we do is hard work too, but ours is really simple. It's just hard to do. You know, yours is just physical hard work, and you got there. And the amount of money you spend for your farming, what would you say the amount of houses on your farming altogether with the different farm areas that you have? How many places do you think you hit in a month?
With the newest implementation of my 17,000, it's probably around 23 to 25,000 homes every month.
Wow. Thank you.
This is a real business there. Good job. Okay, who else had a question? Go ahead, Yvonne.
Yes, I just had a comment of all the different folks that you've had speak. They've all had different techniques, but they all had one thing in common, and that was consistency. If they weren't consistent, it didn't matter what plan they had, it wouldn't work. So I think whatever you decide, if you're consistent, you can be successful.
It's a great thought. Good. Okay, what else did we learn here? What else did we learn? Go ahead, Albert.
I want to piggyback on what everyone else pretty much said, but
You want to pay me back? Is that what you said?
Yeah, on what the other people said was that Jordan doesn't think on the how, he just does it. And you don't have to be technical about being social media savvy, but you just make it simple and just get your name out there.
That's it. That's exactly right, Albert. Good. Okay, good. What else?
I would like
Candy,
to say,
go ahead.
Thank you. I love that he picked up front an affluent farm and then really made a plan to relate to them in a very sophisticated way, because we can sell, you know, low end or high end, and we do a lot of the same work, but it really sounds like it paid off for you financially. That's really inspiring.
Great. Good thought. What else did we learn today?
I like his comment about non-owner occupied, where these people, you know, we're not in front of them. He's not in front of them, but he make it in such a way that they're connected with him. And it's less connection, obviously, with, you know, with like what we do, where we send out farm, have our listing, but he would constantly get connected with them. And because they're non-owner occupied, they don't know what's really going on within the surrounding area, but he makes it in such a way that he's connected with them.
That's right. It's great. Great thought. Great catch. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, what I'm just saying, we always talk about doing a report and having connection. We know that he graduated from college. He's coming from a good college, and he's talking to more, you know, the college people there in the Silicon Valley. So he probably get a lot of connections with them. The people feel comfortable with them and with the people. So that is very important that you make that connection. People will do business with people they trust.
That's right. Absolutely. Good. The speed of trust. Absolutely. Good. Other things we learned today.
I just took a good point. I was going to say what Tess mentioned a couple of minutes ago, but rejection and pushback is part of the game. So I have to keep that in my mind.
That's right. No, it's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. Okay, so what you're going to hear from me going forward, because everybody wants to know, okay, Neil, what did you learn? I picked up a bunch of stuff. I actually have 3 pages of notes here. Okay, so first of all, took a lot of notes. Second of all, I was, and look, after 44 years, some of this is a reminder of consistency and things that we do. But the reminder of there's business in LinkedIn. I can do a better job with Facebook, and we're not even scratching the surface with non-owner occupied. Those were the 3 thoughts I took home from this, okay? Look, guys, he's have a tremendous respect for his work ethic and the stuff that he does. I want you to all remember, he didn't start with 23,000 homes, okay? So if you're gonna think about doing this, which is kind of the way that Jennifer did this yesterday, you start by calling everybody on LinkedIn, or you start by door knocking and phone canvassing your farms, and then you build up. This is a process. It's over time, okay? This didn't happen overnight. And that's an important thing to remember. It's a process. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, we're going to be here for a long, long time. Lots of opportunity. All right, let's give Jordan a very big hand. Unmute yourselves again, please do that. Jordan, thank you very, very much. Thank you so much. And we will look for your information. You've got your Instagram, we have your email, and we'll be emailing you and doing that very, very soon. Thank you very much again. Appreciate it.